Hey, so this video is for you if you suffer from anxiety. And I want to give you first perspective. Now, if you suffer with this, if you struggle with this, if this is a big problem for you, first off, I feel you. And I don't want to step on anything you've already done. So if you are like really well versed in dealing with anxiety, or you've gone through whatever and you've conquered it, whatever, look, everyone's got their own journey. If you've accomplished that for yourself, congratulations. So this might not be for you, but this could be for you if you still have anxiety and you want to do something about it, and what you've tried thus far hasn't worked. So I want to talk about that, and I also want to speak to it in the frame of money. And I don't normally do that. That's not normally my forte, but well, it seems that there's a market need for that. I posted a comment of a client of mine a couple days ago who wanted to work on their money mindset because they were having anxiety of not being able to pay their bills fast enough and that kind of thing. And that's a huge struggle. I mean, come on, that's an honest take, And I gave them some instructions and some advice, which really helped them. And we ended up cutting their debt in half in a quarter, a tenth of the time it would have taken them any other way. So that was cool. And what I want to do in this video is give you a take, because I'm doing this video post, publicly, but also privately in my Facebook group. And if you want to join my Facebook group, if you're at all interested in mindset stuff or psychology or your growth as a human being and your personal development, then you can find that group by just hitting my profile, and there's a link in my bio that'll take you right there. So anyway, what's this first take on anxiety? So what am I saying here? Well, I asked this question in the group, in my Facebook group, and I had a couple people respond with their own different takes on what this means. And so I'm going to read you a couple of those answers, because it's interesting to see where people go, and I want to give people kind of a different perspective about this, because I think there's more that's possible. And I also find that sometimes people who find their solution find out that their solution only works for so long. So that's not really useful. We might as well get a sustainable result, right? So here's the answer. So I asked in my group, I said, what do you think the number one cause of anxiety is? Okay. And so some people said like fear, fear of what other people think. And this is kind of cool. So I'm actually going to go through here, and I'm going to give you this this concept. So I'll start there. The concept is that anxiety, and my challenge to you is this: bring me an anxiety that doesn't have an infatuation underneath or on top of it. Show me an anxiety that doesn't have that. And what you'll find, if you're careful enough to analyze your mind and be self-aware, and you want to grow yourself in that way, you'll find that anxiety can't actually exist without some kind of infatuation. And what does infatuation mean? Well, let's just assume that, let's not assume, let's actually do the thing. I love the dictionary, and so we're just going to look at this. But ultimately, what it means in the context of this is you're like very passionate. You're very, the definition is possessed with an intense but short-lived passion or admiration for someone or something, whatever. And the way that I've learned it, infatuation is like an uncontrollable positive attachment to something. So basically all it means is that you are perceiving something as so highly supportive of your person and your value system that it's impossible to think of it in the negative way. Okay, that's a real infatuation, is when you're hooked on a concept, you're hooked on a fantasy, you're hooked on an idea, you're hooked on a way of being. I should be this way, they should be this way, they should do less of this and therefore do more of that, or whatever. And it's one-sided. It only has benefits and no drawbacks. Only positives, no negatives. Okay, that's kind of an infatuation. And I will, just from my own experience working with clients one of them actually probably watching right now, literally had anxiety for 25 years and had tried everything under the sun, gone to all sorts of specialists and coaches and personal development seminars and done all this stuff and all the medicines under the sun to try and get rid of it. And it didn't go away. They got somewhere, but they came to me and they're like, okay, here's what I know it is. And I'm like, that's not what it is, bro. And I showed them, and it took us like, not even an hour to clear it. And suddenly he's like, oh my God, it's been like a year and he still hasn't had a single anxiety episode since. So there's something to this, and I'm not saying this is for everybody, but it's for you if it hasn't worked, if whatever you've tried hasn't worked for you yet, okay? So Anxiety and infatuation go hand in hand. Now, that's hard to take. Some people might be throwing up right now. Okay, fine. But let's just look at it. So I'm going to read some of the answers that my group posted here. I'll do it like this so we can, I'm using a wide angle lens on my phone. It's kind of fun. Okay, so fear. Okay, so someone says, I'm like, what do you think the number one cause of anxiety is? People are like, fear. Okay, well, fear, what are you afraid of? I'm afraid of losing what? I'm afraid of this. I'm afraid of this happening, which is the opposite of something else, which I'm putting up on a pedestal and I can't see destroyed. It's only positive, no negatives, and therefore my negative shows up as fear and anxiety. One example, 100% accurate, okay? Number one, a friend of mine, Alvaro says, fear of what other people think. Okay, fear of what other people think. What does that really mean? I think people should see me and think about me in only a particular way, which I'm obsessed with, and therefore can't handle the opposite. Okay, so I'm infatuated with the way people see me, or the opinion I want people to have of me, or whatever that means to me, right? Aaron Thomas says, dysregulated nervous system, thinking that we need to be hyper alert for some future event. Okay, that's fairly good. But then he goes on and says, second answer, New Zealand government mandates. Okay, sure. We could go there. But what does that really mean? New Zealand government mandates. What that really means is, okay, well, I'm not okay with that, but I'm okay with an opposite. And I see no benefits to this, and I see only benefits here. So I'm infatuated again with the idea of having no mandates, right? Someone says work and relationships. Okay, again, having a perception that it should only be a certain way or only be nice without mean or whatever. A good friend of mine, Mila, says three things. So number one, not being understood. Number two, not being accepted. Number three, lack of communication and connection. But in the comments right now, I'm going to read that again. And in the comments, anyone watching here, just take the time and I want you to test yourself. Okay, I just taught you a concept that anxiety and infatuation can't be separated. So what's the infatuation here? So the cause of anxiety is not being understood. What's the infatuation? Just write it in the comments. I'm going to test you. Okay. Number one is not being understood. What's the infatuation then, if that's the fear, if that's the anxiety? Not being accepted. What's the fantasy then? What's the infatuation if not being accepted is a nightmare? Lack of communication and connection. What's the infatuation then? Right? Now, you might be writing this right now. I don't know, but try it out if you want. But I'm going to share right now that, okay, number one, not being understood. What's the infatuation? Being fully understood. I'm obsessed with being fully understood. Not being understood means something to me, regardless of wherever it comes from. And so therefore I'm obsessed with this outcome and I can't handle its opposite. I'm infatuated. And therefore I have anxiety. Not being accepted. What's the infatuation? Being accepted. Right? I can't see any drawbacks to being accepted. God, doesn't everybody want that? Maybe not. But this is my point, is that you can't have one of these without the opposite. Lack of communication and connection. Literally in the answer is the infatuation, a lack of connection and communication, right? So connection and communication are on a pedestal again. Now, again, this has become outrageously neurotic, kind of. At the same time, it's incredibly useful to recognize because, for example, if you have anxiety and you're shaking every day for 25 years kind of thing, maybe that's you, maybe it's not. But if that's going on and you've been trying everything else to get rid of the pain of it or the underlying trauma or the events in your life that led you to be so scared and frightened, and you've accomplished that work and you've got someone, you're like, yeah, I'm proud of the work that I've done. Okay, great. And then you don't actually destroy or dismantle or at least question the validity or the bipolarity of your infatuation, then what will happen is you'll regrow the trauma over time. So you can't actually get rid of trauma without dealing with the infatuation, which is one of the things I love teaching because it's so like, what the hell? Like, I don't know if that blows your mind or whatever, but the first time I heard that and I really recognized that and took that to heart, it blew my mind. I was like, what? I've got this backwards. And that's the thing that most people do. And so I want to kind of take this in a bit of a tangent. One of the reasons I'm doing this video is to answer that question from my group. And the other reason I'm doing it is because I want to respond to a post that I did a little bit back here on February 24th. Geez, it's been a while now. But like this has been one of the most engaged posts I've ever put on my Facebook. I've hit a nerve here for some reason, and so I want to respond a little bit to that, and it deserves another video response and post response. So I'll do more of that also. But this one was particularly about financial anxiety. And so if that's you, just raise your hand, just be like, yeah, I've got that, and I get it. I've been there too, and I understand what that's about. And you know what? We could always be there again. Okay, so it's incredibly important to recognize that like these things will go in and out of, and nothing's permanent, and everything changes, right? At the same time, there's things to do right, and there's things to do wrong. And so where my client was at, which is really sad, like the more I've thought about it, the more I've realized how insane this is, and how much it calls to me to really help people and solve this problem for people. Because a lot of people get into like trouble financially, and you can be in trouble. By the way, you can be in trouble financially because you have no money. You can be in trouble financially because you have all the money in the world. So it's a spectrum. No one's gaming this. But she messaged me and she's like, hey, I need to work on my money mindset. And I'm like, okay, why? And she tells me why, and I'm like, okay, well, how long have you been working on your money mindset for this? And she's like, oh, 25 years. I'm like, so in 25 years, the result of you working on your money mindset is $16,000 in debt. Okay, that might be a lot for some people, might not be a lot for other people, whatever, to each their own. You're your own person, you know your situation. But to her situation, that was really desperate. Why? Because she had not enough income coming in to deal with the interest payments. Okay, so now I have a client. You got to take my position here. Like you have a person in your life who's coming to you asking for money mindset advice. They've been doing it for so long, thinking in their own mind, because of propaganda and personal development books or whatever, that if they just do this thing, or if they're just more grateful, if they release their trauma bonds, or if they release whatever, that magically their life will just change and they'll know exactly what to do and money will start flowing and all this stuff. And I mean, okay, that's interesting, but is that really useful and functional? I'm not convinced. And that was where my client was. And I'm like, well, okay, well, let's maybe not do that. Let's think differently then. Let's actually look at what are the assets that you have to be able to sell right now. Because if this is a real problem, we got to solve it right now. So we ended up selling like $3,000 of clothes, which is super cool. She ended up selling like thousands of dollars of photos that she had zero value on and didn't even think people would buy. And literally, I think the last time I chatted with her, she has a yoga company that's wanting to print her artwork on yoga mats and sell them and get her a commission. I mean, it's so cool to see what happened in a short amount of time. And the thing is, and the most brilliant part of that to me, is that none of that had to do with her money mindset. It had everything to do with her ability to look at her resources differently and take action. And this is one of the biggest challenges I see in the personal development space, especially with people that have anxiety. Look, it's so amazing to me. So many people are in suffering in some area of their life, and the personal development models or the teachers out there kind of just look at it and they're like, oh, okay, you've got that pain. I'm going to help you resolve that pain. And if I resolve that pain for you using some kind of mind manipulation technique or whatever, which will do certain things and benefit you, and I'm not arguing that, but if, like, they're selling it in the concept of if you just clear your pain, money will show up. If you just clear your pain, you'll be grateful forever. If you just clear your pain, positivity will be abundant. You'll never have a bad day. Everyone will love you and you'll love everybody and life will be just great. Like, no, it doesn't work like that. Here's the reality. Like, if you want to play piano properly, you're going to spend weeks and weeks and weeks, day after day, learning how to play a friggin' scale. It's going to take practice, and it's going to take specific practice doing the thing that will help you grow the most. I can't sit down at the piano and have anxiety that I can't play a song and be impatient and then be like, oh yeah, I'm going to work on my piano mindset. I'm going to go dig up my childhood wounds or whatever. And look, I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's everyone's approach, right? My approach is a bit different. But I'm certain that if you practice the action that leads you closer to the result that you're looking for, then you will get closer to that result by default. You will have tested something. You'll find out what works and what doesn't. and you'll get closer to there. But you can't avoid practice. This is a big piece. You can't avoid actually taking the action to do the thing. And it's amazing how many people will get sold, unfortunately, and this is really sad, for me at least. It's amazing how many people get sold on this idea that the way to get your positive money is to work on your negative pain. And somehow if you just clear all your pain, money will show up. It's like if I just clear all my pain and trauma, money will just show up in my life. Dude, guys, I will tell you honestly, I did that for like 15 years. It doesn't work, right? The way to get money is to provide a value. The way to get money is to actually like work with people that know how to do that and learn from them and apply it and behave differently and track your behaviors and like look at what you're doing and how many actions what are the behaviors that you're doing that are profitable versus not. And that if you're like most people, here's what I guarantee: 99% of the behaviors in your life are not profitable. That's reality. That was my reality too. And I'm slowly but surely incrementally changing that because I have a deep desire to be financially fortunate. I have a deep desire to, help other people get there too, because it matters to me for some reason. I don't know why. I'm certain I can dig that up if you're really curious. But what am I meaning by that? What do I really want to say about that? What I really want to say about that is that if you're like stuck in a emotional crisis or an existential crisis or some kind of lifestyle crisis where it's not getting solved fast enough, and you have been led into the trap that says, oh, this must be because of the way my attitude is, or this must be the way that my psychology is set up, or it must be the way that it must be that I'm not positive enough. It must be that I'm not nice enough. It must be that I've got some deeper unconscious wound that I got to deal with. And until I deal with all those things, and the worst one is until I deal with all those things, and until I am absolutely certain that I have this perfect psychology and this perfect positivity and this perfect niceness and this perfect this and this perfect this, and I've self-validated that, and therefore I've climbed the mountain and I'm there and nothing can fuck me up, and then you get fucked up immediately because that's unsustainable. The truth is you have both sides of life, and you can't avoid practice. So you can say that, yeah, I've got these blocks. I've got my Lego blocks. I've got my this and my that, and I've got to go work on this stuff, and I'll never get what I want until I work on all of it. Well, here's what I guarantee. All the time you spend working on that is time where you could have started with, what can I sell? What can I sell around me? And it's amazing to me right now in the world, because we have so much opportunity to literally, with our friggin' phone, be a walking, talking friggin' flea market. Okay? Literally. Like, I've sold, in the last, probably 6 months, at least $5,000 of gear and equipment and things that I don't need on Facebook Marketplace for free with 0 transaction fees. Imagine that. Sometimes I've actually sold equipment I bought years ago for more than I bought it for. Why? Because some assets you buy and they accrue in value. And then you can sell them for more than you bought them for. Isn't that interesting? Right? But here's the real problem. The real problem is that people have distorted what money mindset means. Okay, and this is really fucked up, and I hate it, and I want to fight this entire thing. And I'm learning as I go, so I don't want to speak as I'm some friggin' guru on this, but I've got some insights, and I think they matter. And one of them is that we have distorted and we have intertwined this concept that the reason you don't have money is because you're fucked up. I would say the reason you don't have money is because you are not practicing behaviors that lead to transactions. That's true. Now, there might be a thing of, I don't see what I have as valuable. Okay, that's a value mindset. But a money mindset is, how do I sell this? What do I do to sell it? How do I practice that? So there's really 2 things here. Number 1, you have to see, what do you have as valuable? That's an asset that other people want. And 2, how do I sell it? How do I attract other people to do it? Facebook Marketplace is super easy for that if you wanted to. And that's a small thing. But I'm absolutely convinced there's billions of dollars being transacted on Facebook Marketplace, unbeknownst to any government authority, which is just astonishing to me, worldwide, in this little marketplace that most people don't know on the Facebook app. But it's so cool to me to see that much money going across the world every single day. And I think that if anyone really wanted to, they could get into that game. I mean, that's just my own experience with that one client. But I've also learned that like having a profitable psychology is not easy. Having a profitable psychology literally means you are profiting through every behavior you take in your life. That doesn't mean that'll be true 100% of the time, but it means that more often than not, or at least often enough, you have a profit at the end of your month or the end of your year. And that's difficult. I will tell you it's difficult because I've lived the opposite for my whole life, and getting out of that and stopping that train wreck is an emotional momentum. There's a momentum to it. And one of the things we have to recognize and disconnect is this idea that the reason you don't have money is because you just have pain or suffering, or you have, God forbid, trauma or some other thing. And those are all the justifications why I don't have money, because somehow money was entitled in the beginning. Money was never entitled, guys. It was never entitled. This is the thing that people need to understand and just delete from their psychology, is that you are not entitled to it. That never occurred. You never signed up and were like, yes, I'm entitled to that. No. And because this is the whole justification of it. I'm entitled to it. And so therefore the reason I don't have it is because of this, which some idiot just sold me on, and now I'm going on a wild fucking goose chase down the fucking rabbit hole where it's fucking dark and cold and damp and prone to flooding and worms and shit, and I'm down in the rabbit hole, and I'm trying to work with my fucking mind, trying to figure this out, and I'm doing my stuff, and I'm doing my affirmations, and I'm doing my journaling, and I'm being more grateful, I've got all these things, blah, 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 and meanwhile, none of that time I ever actually transacted anything in order to produce cash in my bank account. How's that working for you, Dr. Phil? Probably not. Having a positive psychology is incredibly important. If you want to have a profitable psychology, if you want to profit in your life, you have to profit, which means your efforts and your actions and the things that you do need to matter and produce a result that you can measure that's more actually giving back to you more than you put in. And, using a very simple example, playing a piano. It's like you got to play the piano and you got to practice the stuff. And if you practice the little things that you might not like in the beginning, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, you're like, man, I'm amazed that I can do that. Wow, how cool is that? That's progress. That's having a profitable psychology, because there's a profitable behavior underneath. If you want to have a profitable psychology, if you want to have a profitable life, if you want to essentially have more than you did yesterday, you really have to establish profitable behaviors. And profitable behavior doesn't exactly happen just because you've bought into some delusional book or some guy that says if you just affirm this, or if you just go through this portal, or if you just go and listen to this alien, or be this way, or be bipolar or one-sided or whatever, that you'll somehow just attract money, and it'll just come to you because it's your right as a human being. No. That's incorrect. Viscerally incorrect. And that's something I want to fight for. Anyway, that being said, if this hits you, by the way, and you are interested in this, and maybe you're at the mode right now that I've pissed you off enough and you're like, fuck, that's totally me and I want to do something about it. Well, guess what? I might be running a training. And so if you're interested in that, literally just comment below and say, I'm interested in learn how to see my value. I'm interested to learn more about having a profitable life or a profitable psychology. Or maybe you're at this point where you're like, I'm done doing the opposite. I want to change. I don't know how. And I've tried all this stuff. It hasn't worked yet. Please fucking help me. If that is you, put a comment below this video, and I'll set up a training where we're going to go through this and explore this in depth. And then we'll maybe go a bit further. But for now, I'm going to leave you with that. I'm going to pick up my son, and we're going to have a great time. All right. Thanks for watching this video. I hope that matters to you. I hope you do something with this. Most importantly, take an action that's different, and give yourself some credit. Stop over-criticizing yourself. Stop over-analyzing it. And just be like, okay, if you're in that position and you're fucking stuck and you're broke and you're screwed, look at your value. Look at the assets you have. It's difficult. I know some people need a lot of help with that. That's fine. But the thing is that when you practice even the smallest fractional behavior in that intention, a day will go by, 2 days go by, 3 days. It's like playing a piano. You get better the more you practice. And so you'll see opportunities a week from now that you didn't see today. And you couldn't have seen today. Nobody could have seen it today. You just have to start actually practicing the behavior that's profitable. All right, guys. That was fun. I'm going to show this in my Facebook group. If you want to join that, just go on my bio. As it says, join my Facebook group. It's where we do all this kind of discussion and stuff. Where I try to take people beyond personal development, essentially, because it really matters. Like, this whole video is kind of about that concept. But you'll learn more about that if you join. So if you want to join me there, click that. Leave a comment below. I'd love to hear you and read your messages and respond. And really just help and serve. Because this stuff matters to me, and it's just something I like doing. So anyway, we'll chat soon.